Must be bad guys.
Not only does YouTube offer movies for free, but they have a killer movie section this month. In fact, it puts Netflix and Prime Video to shame for the month of March, which includes some amazing science fiction. We've got 2 historical dramas, a couple of action movies, and no, these are not bootlegs. These are official listings that YouTube offers. They rotate out different movies every month, but right now they've got The Rock, The Terminator, La La Land, World War Z, Saving Private Ryan, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Heat, and Gladiator, all free to watch here in the US on YouTube. But in this video, I want to recommend some stunning yet underrated movies. My bottom pick on this list is sort of like a tame version of The Revenant, except this one is set in prehistoric times. In fact, it's 20,000 years in the past. And the bulk of the story does revolve around a young hunter out on his first hunt, where he gets separated from his tribe and then has to survive in the wilderness, yet he befriends a wolf. Essentially, the first dog is what this movie's trying to depict. Now, it didn't really happen in this fashion. It took thousands of years for this to occur, but it ends up being an excellent wilderness survival movie. And even though the story is a work of fiction and is in no way historically accurate, they did get the help of anthropologists to help craft the language, the costumes, the hunting that you see. There's a lot of hunting depicted in this movie. All of those details are pretty accurate, and it leaves you with a pretty exciting PG-13 wilderness survival story. I will say the movie jumped the gun a little bit. The technology for having all CGI animals in a movie was not quite there when this movie came out. It was close. It's not awful, but they do a much better job of things like this today. My number 9 pick is kind of a Hitchcockian style thriller. It's a little bit more of a popcorn movie than a Hitchcock style thriller. Man on a Ledge is still a fun watch. Sam Worthington plays a man out on a ledge in a building in New York City. And the way they film all of that is exciting enough to support a movie, but there's much more going on in Man on a Ledge. It actually turns into a heist film, something you would know if you watched the trailer, so that's not really a spoiler. Critics were pretty lukewarm on it back when it first came out, and so I could see why a lot of people missed it, but it is an exciting popcorn cruncher of a movie. In fact, it's a lot better than thrillers in this same genre that Netflix tends to put out. Next up, we've got a sequel to one of, if not the greatest sci-fi movie ever made, 2010, The Year We Make Contact. Now, there's some people watching probably didn't even know that 2001: A Space Odyssey had a sequel, and that's because it's got nothing to do really with Stanley Kubrick's original. Now, story-wise, it is the next mission. It's trying to go to one of the moons of Jupiter to find out what happened to the original mission, but that's about it. The production design, the music, everything is different about it, and in this case, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Now, if 2001 never existed and this movie kind of stood on its own, it would still, I think, be hailed as an excellent sci-fi flick, but because it lives in the shadow of literally like what is considered by, movie critics and people that really study, they consider 2001: A Space Odyssey to be like the pinnacle of sci-fi films, and I do agree with that in a lot of different ways. 2010 it doesn't even come close. It's not even in the same ballpark. I will admit though, it does make for a strange and almost confusing watch. You don't want to make comparisons to the original when you watch this. You probably won't like it. In fact, I'll even say story-wise, it is considerably better than my next pick. But next on the list, we've got an action movie that is so unbelievably breathtaking. It deserves this spot, and for some of you, I know you would rank Sucker Punch a lot higher.
If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
I will say, I think this is Zack Snyder's most underrated movie. Not necessarily his best, but his most underrated. The story gets kind of lost in all of the gloss in this movie. It is just, like I said, a real stunner. In fact, the story gets so muddled and lost and is so kind of, I'm sorry to say, kind of one-dimensional in this movie that it's just completely overpowered by the strength of the visual presentation. This is such an amazing looking movie, and it's because of the setup. You follow a young girl who is committed to an asylum. Essentially, she's been wrongfully imprisoned and there's no escape. In fact, her only escape is her imagination, and it is, again, a breathtaking. Now, you pair that with a killer soundtrack and you've got something, just really awesome to watch. Because of all that, Sucker Punch, it ends up feeling a lot more like a 2-hour music video, but it's an incredible music video. Now, before telling you about the other movie discoveries on this list, I want to tell you about something I discovered recently. It's today's sponsor, Groons, which is a comprehensive formula loaded into just 8 sweet-tasting gummy bears a day. But these are not multivitamins or probiotics or greens gummies. It's all 3 plus something extra. Unlike other multivitamins, Groons are loaded with 20 essential vitamins, which is a lot, but there's also 60 whole food sourced ingredients packed in here as well. Individual packets come in a big bag like this one, and Groons supports gut health, energy, immunity, beauty, recovery, cognition, all the bases. They're also vegan, nut-free, gluten-free, dairy-free, making them easy to incorporate into your diet. They also have no artificial flavors or colors, which is surprising because the thing you get extra with Groons is, they taste delicious. Groons are low sugar, but they also offer a sugar-free option, which is cool. It's also worth noting that Groons has 6 times the gut health-related ingredients than your typical green drink has. And when compared to other supplements or drinks, Groons are actually easier to absorb, which obviously means you get more benefit, but it also means you're not just flushing a lot of it down the toilet, in your urine. It's just been a delightful addition to my routine over the last couple of months. I highly recommend it, and for a limited time, my viewers can save up to 52% off when they follow my link down in the video description. Again, that's 52% off the most delicious, easy to consume vitamin supplement I've ever tried. I highly recommend it. But speaking of things I recommend, let's get back to the movies. Now, in terms of filmmaking style, my next selection on this list is on the complete opposite end of the spectrum to Sucker Punch, yet it still somehow ends up being just as visually breathtaking with The New World. Now, this is a film by Terrence Malick, who, if you know his filmmaking style, then you know exactly what to get with this movie. He's famous for films like The Tree of Life, Badlands, and The Thin Red Line. And this is the story of Pocahontas. It's essentially a live-action Pocahontas movie, and the reason you've maybe never heard of that is because the way Terrence Malick makes his film is very much like he's filming a documentary. The narrative is very thin. In fact, they don't really share a lot through the dialogue. You kind of have to pick it up and put it together yourself, yet he does it masterfully. It's not a mess, and the cinematography in his work is really just kind of unparalleled. The New World is a beautiful movie. It's a story that you've heard. It's told in a really great way, but it's very slow paced. It's a almost relaxing experience watching this movie, so I recommend it. You just want to go into it with the right mindset. Now, I bet some of you are going to be very surprised to see my next pick, because my next one is based on a board game, and it's essentially ripping off the style of Michael Bay, which means you've essentially got a Michael Bay action movie that wasn't even done by Michael Bay, yet I still recommend Battleship. Now, I only recommend this for people who want to have a good time. It's not an amazing movie. I will say, though, they made great use of adapting the mechanics of the game to what is essentially an alien invasion movie. And it's a pretty awesome one at that. Now, when it came out, they made a big deal about Rihanna being in it, even though she's only got a few lines. It's one of the only movies she's really been in. Yet, there were a ton of other great actors in this as well. Jesse Plemons has a pretty meaty role in this. You've got Liam Neeson, Alexander Skarsgård. All fighting aliens in battleships, on land. The movie's completely unhinged. If you watched American Primeval recently on Netflix, the same director, Peter Berg, he did this movie, which is, I think, why it works. I look at this as like an Ed Wood-style alien invasion movie, just done to the nines with modern computer technology. It's a lot of fun. Now, my next one isn't quite as visually stunning, but It's just a real riot, and I've not seen it available on streaming services in quite a while, but again, YouTube is outdoing Netflix and Prime Video this month. Neither of those platforms added very much this month, but we've got Paul right here on YouTube.
Hi.
Now, this is like Pineapple Express mixed with Close Encounters of the Third Kind, mixed with Shaun of the Dead. I will say, it's not quite as good as any one of those movies, but for something that's kind of a mashup of all three, it's surprisingly excellent. It's got a bunch of running jokes that are really funny. Yes, it's got a lot of pot-smoking humor. Seth Rogen voices the alien, but Simon Pegg and Nick Frost teaming up in another comedy movie that was not directed by Edgar Wright is good enough for me. Jason Bateman has a great little role in this, and it's from the director of Superbad. It's got a lot going for it. No, it's not greater than the sum of all of its parts, but Paul is made up of some pretty excellent parts.
It's a miracle.
Another movie with just excellent aspects and a great cast, and it's one of Mark Wahlberg's most underrated action movies, Contraband.
What's going on?
Chris, come home. It's my brother.
This is a gritty action flick about smugglers. It goes a little bit over the top here and there for great effect. I mean, it's a lot of fun when it does go over the top, but the reason I say that is because for the most part, Contraband feels like a grounded crime drama. And then it has multiple sequences that are extremely time sensitive, and it's super exciting. I would say fans of the Mission Impossible movies would get a huge kick out of this. This plays out a lot like a spy or Mission Impossible flick, except it's got that different flavor because of the smugglers. And like I said, you got a great cast. Obviously Mark Wahlberg, but Ben Foster is excellent in this. Giovanni Ribisi plays one of the bad guys. He's excellent. And Kate Beckinsale has kind of an unusual, like, action-less role in an action movie here. And it's got a nice R rating. This is the type of movie that seems like they would have just kneecapped it by making it PG-13, but they didn't. It's got a nice rough edge to it, and like I said, it's plenty exciting. Now we've got an epic sci-fi movie that went criminally underrated back when it released. In fact, for that matter, so was the show the movie is based on, Firefly. It was one of the most criminally underrated shows of all time, but it did give us a great sci-fi flick with Serenity.
Listen up! We're coming down to empty that vault!
You have to give me your authorization password. Okay.
I'm honestly surprised this movie even got made. They struggled so much to get the show made, and it basically just withered on the vine, because that's just what Fox does. They've killed so many amazing shows over the years, but very rarely do they produce a solid flick like this. Serenity is just an awesome space opera of a movie. If you're a fan of, Guardians of the Galaxy and you've somehow never seen Serenity, I don't care if you've got to watch commercials because it's on YouTube. Make it the first movie you watch off of this list, unless you have not seen my number one pick, which is an amazing hidden gem I've also not seen on streaming services, maybe ever. In fact, I think it's my first time ever recommending Quiz Show.
See, the audience didn't tune in to watch some amazing display of intellectual ability. They just wanted to watch the money.
Imagine if they could watch you.
Now, this was actually directed by Robert Redford, and it's about one of the biggest scandals in game show history. Ralph Fiennes and John Turturro both star in this. They're both amazing. This was before either one of them was really famous. And the supporting cast is just fantastic. A bunch of great character actors you'll recognize. Now, in this movie, events that spanned several years are actually condensed down into like one season of this show. But the movie is fairly accurate, and it takes place in the 1950s. It's just, a beautiful kind of stunner of a movie. But all of the conspiring and things that go on in the investigation is all just like edge of your seat, interesting stuff. Here's a recap of the list. I do put the full list down in the top pinned comment for you. Thanks again to Groons for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to go check out their link in the video description to get that discount. Every shirt worn on the show is available at darrenvandam.com/shop. Not the actual shirt I wore, you can get a new one over there. But I'll keep making these videos as long as y'all keep watching them. Thanks for watching this special YouTube list, and you will see me on the next one.